patients, and this panel will be in French. You can choose either French or English in the interpretation bit in the lower part of the screen. You will be able to choose the language you prefer. And yeah, we are also recording the meeting, and you'll be able to hear it after. I am Sophie Desmidt at APM. I'll be the moderator of this panel that has 4 panelists in the climate crisis in Sahel. We know there are many crises for this climate change problem, and we are looking at the present model for immigration, food security, etc., especially for the marginal groups. And despite this growth of links between the conflicts and the situation in Sahel. And the response has been very fragmented. And also for these environmental peace. And it goes both ways, climate change and crisis. We have also seen examples, good practices to develop more integrated responses, and there will also be recommendations in order to fill these gaps. So I am very happy to be with Almoustapha Amadou at the Humanitarian Dialogue in Sahel, and Miss Nadachilia de la défense contre le climat au Gourma. We also have the person charged about security and food security from the European nations, and Oli Brand, main counselor for food security and climate change. I ask every panelist to prepare some responses. Each one will have 5 to 7 minutes for their presentation. And after Holly Brown, I'll ask him to, or ask her to close the discussion. I just want to share a key message for the webinar. And we are asked to have a professional behavior. We will not allow any improper behavior during the conversation. We can start our discussion. Mustafa, thank you very much to be with us today. I would like to start with you. Could you give us your opinion and possible opportunities for environmental peace at local level, and how the best practices can be carried out in order to face these approaches, and the way your organization has done it. I think I want to make sure you prepare the presentation. If you want to share it at this moment, you can share it now. Thank you very much. We can see your screen, but I don't know if you are ready with the presentation. Yes. Okay, perfect. Please go ahead. Yes, it's perfect. We can hear you. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to share the experiences that we have done at the group of pastoral in Sahel. My name is Almoustapha Amadou, and I am the head of the mission at Sahel. From 2015, we are trying to implement a project called Pastoral.
Quelques mots sur le changement climatique. Le changement climatique, c'est cette
And we are going to start by the climate change. Now, we are talking about this because the media talks about it a lot. But the climate change is not from today. This started in the 70s. I don't know if you can see the graphic. This graph represents the raining levels in Sahel. We can see the graphic, but if you can put the presentation mode, because we can see the whole screen. Yes, we can see it. It's not very clear, so if you could just put the presentation mode, with this the image will hold the whole string, the whole screen. Yes, this is perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So this image is divided into two parts. First, where there is a lot of blue, and the other one a lot of red. So before the 70s, the Sahel was characterized by many years of good raining and with some intermediate years. But after this 1970, the situation changed. We had a succession of bad years with some few good years about rain. And this was a great impact on resources and conflict, because the climate was hotter, rain was less, and the availability of resources was less as well. This has effects. For example, if the rain is less and the resources diminish, the visible effect of this is less produce for from the earth. So people tend to extend the surface, and also that the population keeps growing. And this is what we call offer and demand. If the offer is lower than the demand, then there is problems. So in the social aspect, there are conflicts that arise. So if there is less rain and the production is less, growers tend to augment the land that they are going to work on. And there is there is going to be the issue of a lot of conflict between peasants and people. So next to these spaces, they are going to try to occupy this land. Sometimes animals are placed in these cultures, and there are conflicts between growers and people in charge of animals. Also, they have to take care. Now the Sahel, people are migrating toward the coast, and they do not use the normal ways for passage. And they try to find the resources in these new countries, and sometimes there is a cultural shock between these two populations, and this displacement um, for the different people who are migrating. We have to change the production techniques. For example, fishermen. There is a great conflict that has not been solved between communities in Cameroon. There have been deaths, and the two communities moved into Chad, and there was, I'm talking about the Arabs, Sahel, and the fishermen Miskoul. Fishermen changed the fishing methodology because the water rises. Fishes are trapped into these places that and into these water places, and after and this is going to get into the land of the peasants who were in the same area, and this has caused a lot of displacement, and this is linked to the climate change and to the availability of resources. What has to be done, and we have to try to find what can be done in order to allow the communities to solve their problems, in order to respect the culture of each community. The pastoral mediation is trying to help people solve their problems with a natural link to the natural resources. We have done a study at community level, and the people who are who have to deal with these problems in the everyday basis. So we try to bring these communities to solve their problems and to be able to solve their conflicts and be able to continue with their lives. We are also trying for each community to take in charge their own problems, and we are trying to sit together the parties in conflict so that they can solve them. From 2015 to 2022, we established 12 networks from Mauritania going down to the coast of Togo. This is a whole network of agropastoral mediators, and we have 683 women who participate in this network and who occupy some of the different regions. What do these mediators do? After they become part of the network, they have been able to solve 2,500 conflicts. After that, HD has helped them facilitate the solution of 96 conflicts. What have we done? to all these problems, we have seen that the climate change has added to all these problems. There are problems of security, and populations are migrating even more often, and they have been pushed to migrate. Sometimes the populations just leave themselves, and some other times they bring their animals with them. And that's where we noticed that there were conflicts between the population that would receive these populations in Nigeria, and they do not want to accept the communities with their animals because the resources are already scarce, and they cannot take charge of the new communities that are arriving with their animals into their land. So we were able to bring them together and to try to solve their problem themselves. If we cannot refuse these migrants that are arriving, we have to sit together and see how they're going to share the resources. We decided to fix some calendars when the animals could be brought to the land, to the new land or not. We were able to make these agreements and see which would be the conflicts that could come uh, when these communities arrive to these new countries. We accompany the communities in order to solve their problems, and also the host communities for them to be able to solve the problem with the arriving communities. There is a challenge in Qatar. The first one is to face security. I remember that there is a tribe chief who tell me that because we have no security, because if you come telling us that we're going to be secure, you cannot come back tomorrow and tell us that there is no security in the community. So we had to apply a methodology to be able to help these communities in order for them not to be into an insecure environment. We have to go between hard and soft. We can sit together, the communities or the parties in conflict, but in order to consolidate the results, there must be someone who can explain what they are fighting for. If people are fighting for water, there has to be water. If they are fighting about these corridors for moving around, there has to be the possibility to draw these maps. And this is what we have to do in the Sahel. There is a third challenge, which is the responsibility of the different communities to solve the conflicts themselves. Sometimes we had methodologies that were brought from somewhere else, and we had specialists, and we were proposing things that people did not understand. The problems are from the community, and it's them who have to sit down and have to be able to discuss their own problems and their own conflicts. So they have to be in the first place in this mediation process. We also have inclusion, and that means that all the representatives of the community have to be present, as well as all the others. There has to be inclusion. And the fourth challenge is adapting to the political situation that is present in the country at the present time. There are many interventions in the different partners, and some of them have abandoned, even if the community was still needing their participation in the discussions. The people themselves have to develop these methodologies and the policies to be able to continue helping the communities. And lastly, the last challenge is flexibility in order to include the change that has to be made in the context. This context is not the tech context today is not the same one we're going to have tomorrow. So we have to be flexible because sometimes the projects are developed inside in the rooms. And when we go on site, things are different. And we have to we have to really include all the elements that are part of the negotiation. And I think I went over my 7 minutes, so I will stop here. Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you very much for your relevant comments. I am sure that there will be a lot of questions and comments. And I thank you for the mentioning flexibility that is now giving us way to invite Róisín so that she can make her presentation and her comments on the role that the European Union could develop, the strategies and the approaches and the strategy to operate in the nexus in between humanitarian and climate change and security. So Róisín, can you give us your reflections on how the European Union has a position and which would be the role of the European Union in the Sahel? Thank you, Róisín. I am going to talk now about, I do apologize, but we can not hear very well. And we are talking about the next steps in Sahel. We are in the humanitarian development and peace and security. We have known for a long time that to face this problem, we also have to come up with also very complex solutions, especially in Sahel, where action has been marked by the problems. If we add the problems of interdependence in climate change, we must take the time to analyze and to do the necessary consultations to face the problem. For example, I was in Sahel in 2019. At that time, we were talking about the different dynamics and all the things mentioned by Mustafa. But the conceptual framework was very different from today. And all these problems were, the interpreter apologizes, we can not hear very well. We have to also take into consideration the size of this conflict. our political orientation due to the climate change are we have seen the conflicts grow and grow much bigger inside the different political documents of the European Union. For example, the proposals for Sahel, also for the regional and international participation. What has changed now is that we are forced by the different dynamics and events and a uncontesting basis of the conflict, for example, and this is why we have this joint vision of the problem. This helps putting together all the cases to help increase resilience in many of the regions of El Sahel. So we increase this communication, the planning, the implementation that are founded between climate, environment, peace, and security. Also, the answer to these climate changes and challenges. And the way we can see how to deal with this different, to talk about the reality, about this framework with Sophie, you propose that I speak about the processes, and there are two programs, Niger, Mali, and Chad. We try to have a trans-border approach from an analysis of the conflict and combine it with a very, very deep study. This gave us a very fragmented approach to the problem and the communities, and also to try to put together all the stakeholders. This multi-sectorial approach has allowed some participation, but we know that these processes are very slow, and this has not been very useful. And those that have been successful, we have tried to reply in other places. Burkina Faso is the Wakanda, is the African Knowledge for Agriculture and Other Activities, and is a project that covers the protection, and we were able to work on 26 villages. There was a great diversification of the activities and for the increase of the revenue, and also some actions at the level of the village, accompanying all these developments that were taking place. We helped through the local authorities, the mayors, and with this context. Something that was essential for the success of this process was a good comprehension of the power dynamics and the ways of organization in the villages in order to help to the social cohesion. We have challenges, very big challenges, but we were very careful to on the methodology that we wanted to implement, especially when facing all the epidemics. We could identify some lessons on the climate change. It works for El Sahel, but this is also the same in other engagements of the European Union in other places, and all the work that we do in climate change and environmental issues, peace, and we are conscious of this conflict, and also from the populations in place. We have also seen the technological help, the use of land, and the local communities. This approach is useful only if this information and this research can be exploited. We have to integrate all these in our procedures. These interventions should be multidimensional, multidisciplinary, and integrate the scientific part and with the mediation possibilities as was said by Ashley. And we saw that a sectorial approach will never be a good approach for a challenge such as this one. We always ask for more coordination in order to avoid duplication. And we also want to reinforce all our work in local and national levels. And this has to be done through institutional response. Today is a complex situation, but we have to remain present, and we can help providing this institutional response. This approach has to be trans-border in a context such as this El Sahel, and many interventions look at helping solve this challenge and also to intervene at many levels. At the community level, we have to avoid fragmentation and the creation of new instances. And I think that we have to start with the logics of the establishment of networks that can really help them. Putting together all the stakeholders, and all of this is possible with dialogue, and we have been very clear about this. Mustafa really was clear about this, and we have to see these approaches give their results in a systematic way. It is very complex, but we have to be present and to support the stakeholders at local level so that the institutional coordination is stronger. I think that the European Union will be present and will be a key stakeholder to help face these challenges in El Sahel about all these issues. Thank you very much. Thank you, Róisín, for this contribution on your opinion. That was very interesting. I was able to notice what you said about durability and the need of the European Union to be present and to stay there, as well as what Mustafa said. In this moment that is so difficult for the region, our help has to be the highest. Our other panelist is not here yet, so I am going to go to Oli directly. So Oli, we heard a lot of very interesting points, but before we open the question of the audience, which would be the most important elements that you consider on which we have heard this morning? Thank you very much, and thank you for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. About the presentations, I was the leader of a project in Nigeria in the border place of Gourma, and we worked with the local communities. We do a two-part project for the mediation and how we can integrate a governmental point of view in the negotiations, as well as Mohammed was telling us with these issues. We're talking about natural resources and how can we integrate the consolidation of peace and with the natural resources. We were 9 organizations of different levels with chiefs, the traditional chiefs and the government, with very different points of view and some different experiences, but it's different. It's difficult to close such a different problems, and I could underline 4 main points. First of all, is to concentrate on the natural resources, on these historical places, and these are at the basis of the most of the conflicts: governance and exploitation by the armed forces. We have to deal with the governmental issues, and we saw it in Goma and in Sahel. We have seen that it's a very complex problem all around. The second point would be, and maybe I would add something to what Mustafa said, as he said it, there are measures that can help the solution of conflicts, but also, excuse me, we have to concentrate on the transporter mediation. We have to try to see which parts of the country can help the peace agreements. Mustafa mentioned the 96 peace agreements that have been developed and that they have helped in the Goma state, and 2/3 of these peace agreements are on the basis have natural resources. So if we could have a new point of view on natural resources, if we could help in this aspect, that the agreements will be more sustainable. The third point is that we have a lot of indigenous knowledge that could help face these environmental challenges. in this crisis of governance in El Sahel. It is, we can understand the needs of each of the stakeholders in El Sahel, especially those that have to do with politics, security, and the possibilities for development. If we can change a bit the historical approach, we can change the paradigm in we can foster dialogue, and we can also give a priority for the solution of economic and environmental crisis. And the fourth point, Russian said it, we have to create a space to place everything that has to do with commerce, and many communities have been working with these conflicts, and there is a generalized corruption and non-management of resources, and it's very important to be coordinated and to be engaged in this transborder approach in order to manage natural resources. This would give a lot of strength to the country. If I can add a fifth point, it would be to help the Sahelian stakeholders to finance, including the adaptation to the climate change, and how we can manage this adaptation and to consolidate and help the countries with the climate resilience. So this would be from me. So Sophie, please go ahead. Thank you very much, Oli, for these important remarks, and also to bring the point on financing, because we all know that is a very important point and something very important in order to support the methodologies and the knowledge that we already have on site. So thank you for adding this fifth point. So now I think we can open the floor for questions, and I also invite all participants to write down their questions on the Q&A. There is a question for Mustafa already. Which would be the methods of your approach to identify